What is up, guys? Welcome to another video. And today we are watching scary animations. And I'm doing it at daytime. I don't know why, and now I think I'm doing a face review. I haven't done it yet, so I don't know. Let's see. First story.
When I was 10 years old, I stayed at home by myself for the first time while my parents went out for a date. I was really into horror movies, so my imagination ran wild, so I had every light on in the house. I was scared, honestly, but not so much due to the lights. My parents told me they would be back by 10, so I wasn't really worried. I had food, blockbuster movies to watch, and my favorite game, Manhunt, on my PS2. By the way, this was 2004. It started to get dark outside when all of a sudden a storm hit. Then the lights went out. As soon as it happened, I ran into our living room near the front of the house with my flashlight. I was definitely afraid now. I decided to get under the covers on the couch. I tried to fall asleep, but I was so afraid I couldn't. I don't know why, but I peeked out from under the covers, and I swear, I saw the silhouette of a man in the corner of the room. I jumped back under my covers, breathing heavily. Then all I heard was slow, methodical footsteps.
Let's look at this guy real quick. Excuse me. Look at his mouth. And look at his body. And look at his eyes. I don't know, I just follow people. But look at this. What in the world? His teeth and his eyes, man. What in the world?
They were coming toward me. Then I heard whispering along with the footsteps. My heart was pumping out of my chest at this point. Then the sound stopped. I just laid there frozen. No sound.
Get up and him. Something.
Go!
What?
I got up and ran out of the house because it felt like someone touched my arm.
Yeah, I know what he said.
Go!
Oh, he said go.
I got up and ran out of the house because it felt like someone touched my arm. And I know I heard someone yell the word go. I pretty much ran out of the house with the blanket over my head. I ran to my neighbor's house. I told them what happened and they called the cops from their cell phones.
Imagine.
My parents arrived a little later than go.
Imagine having a kid. Oh, wait.
I pretty much ran out of the house with the blanket over my head. I ran to my...
Imagine having that face when you see a kid come to your house saying, get scared by a monster, and he has a blanket on his head.
My neighbor's house. I told them what happened and they called the cops from their cell phones. My parents arrived a little later than they expected due to bad traffic. They seemed angry about what happened.
Angry?
The police say that there was no evidence of a break-in. I still to this day remember that feeling of fear, but I really don't know if it were my imagination or not.
Bro. That's crazy. Oh no, I don't like this music. It's always on these scary kind of...
This is a story that didn't happen to me. It happened to my dad. It's not a scary story about a creepy encounter with someone or anything paranormal. It's more of a close call kind of story. Anyway, in 2001, he was working for a big company, a good paying job. I'm not sure how long he worked there since I was 3 years old at the time. He got laid off on September 9th, 2001, 2 days before 9/11. On the morning of 9/11, he's still asleep and gets a call from my grandfather saying, "Those raghead terrorists, I'm going to kill all of them." He asked him why the hell he was yelling and cussing into the phone at 8 a.m. My grandfather tells him to turn on the TV and check out the news.
Oh no.
Well, you know the rest. 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center. This part I actually remember seeing on TV. Of course, being 3 years old, I had no idea what was going on. Now here's some creepy stuff for the story. After the towers collapsed, my dad gets a call from his boss. He asked him, "James, what the hell just happened?" There was a loud explosion and everyone started freaking out. I'm still in the tower. and it's really dark in here. My dad tells him the towers are gone. They collapsed. I'm not really sure how their conversation went after this, but eventually his boss's phone cut off. He somehow survived the collapse by being trapped in an air bubble or something like that, I don't know. He got trapped under all the debris and was stuck in the air bubble. No idea how he got signal on his phone underneath all of that. His body was never found.
What?
Now the main reason I'm sharing this story is because a few years ago, my dad told me something that is chilling to think about. Right before he was laid off, he was scheduled to go to a meeting with his boss and some other people he worked with. The meeting took place on the 72nd floor of the North Tower. It was supposed to start exactly at 8 a.m. Coincidence or not, this is creepy. I'm glad he never went to go to that meeting. I only have a few early childhood memories from 2001, so I almost grew up without a father.
Ew, ew. I don't like
Now it's
face.
just something our family talks about every now and then.
This just in, you were looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning
This
that
is
a
a true
plane has
story.
crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. CNN Center right now is just beginning to work on this story, obviously calling our sources and trying to figure out exactly what happened, but clearly something relatively devastating happening this morning there,
Oh,
the south
no.
end of the island of Manhattan. That is, once again, a picture of one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
Excuse me?
I'm 26 years old, and this story happened about 5 months ago. One night I woke up at around 1 a.m. and I couldn't go back to sleep. Usually when this happens, I go on my laptop and I go on social media or I watch YouTube.
YouTube.
I got pretty bored after a while, and then remember my friend telling me about the deep web, and even
Don't
worse, the
even.
dark web. I thought it's the perfect time to check it out. When I go on there,
Why?
there was a lot of links to click on.
Now that's your first mistake. Why in the world would anyone... I've heard so many dark webs or deep web stories, and all of them are like talking about... It's just... Why would he even risk that?
Such as live rape,
That.
illegal pornography, hitmen for hire, human body parts for sale, torture, all kinds of stuff.
Oh.
I clicked one link that said home invasion live stream. The first
Really?
thing I saw upon clicking was a man filming himself. He was wearing a clown mask and held up a large knife imitating slicing his own throat.
Get off there now.
He then turned the camera around to film a window that was slightly open. He took his shoes off and slowly slid the window open and climbed inside.
Oh no.
You could see him sneaking upstairs. He entered the bathroom where he made a small cut on his arm with the knife he was carrying. He got all the toothbrushes and rubbed them in his open wound and put them
Ew.
back how he found them. I didn't really feel comfortable watching this,
Yeah.
but after seeing that I was disgusted. I couldn't click away. I was too enticed by this and what he was doing, so I kept watching. He then opened the door to a bedroom where a man and a woman were sleeping. He leaned over to the man, put his hands right next to his face, almost touching him. Then the same again with the blade that he was carrying. He pressed the knife right up to his throat, almost making contact. The masked man then went and stood right next to the woman on her side of the bed and stood there just staring at her, just watching her breathe as she slept. After just standing there, he pulled something out of his pocket and placed it next to the woman's pillow. I couldn't see what it was, but then he zoomed in. It was a note with the words, "I could have raped and killed your whole family," written on it. He then snuck out of the bedroom, and I said out loud, "This guy is so fucked up." He paused, and he turned the camera onto himself and just stared at it. I thought, that's weird. It's like he heard me say that. He was still staring at the camera, in fact. It was like he was staring at me. After a short pause, he carried on sneaking around downstairs and quietly climbed out the window. And the stream ended. At that point, I also had enough for one night and decided to try and sleep. I never told anyone that I went on the deep web. In about 3 weeks after watching that live stream, I woke up one morning to see a note next to my pillow, and it read, "So who's fucked up now?" Yeah, I was scared, but I didn't tell anybody because it sounds fake.
Bro,
But I tell you what, I will never go back on the deep.
I told you what happens when you're on the dark web. So weird, because like they can hear you, or like so weird, because there was this one, like when these people went on the dark web and watched this live stream, and then and then this guy fed a girl with a bowl of dog food, and then he put a sticky note on the guy that was watching the live stream's house and where it's at. And then he broke into his house on the live stream.
Or the dark web again.
I have never heard any of
This story happened to me on my first day of high school. I remember walking down my street in the morning toward the bus stop. There were a few other kids that stood next to me talking. I remember walking down my street in the morning toward the bus stop.
these. Is that a
There were a few other kids that...
What is that? No, stop forgetting it.
This story happened to me on my first day of high school. I remember walking down my street in the morning toward the bus stop.
Really? That's the bus stop? Is your picture, your YouTube channel picture that says subscribe?
There were a few other kids that stood next to me talking. There was also a man who definitely didn't belong at a high school bus stop.
Nope.
He was tall, had a shaved head,
Nope.
a mustache, and a white tank top on.
You guys, I made you something.
What do you mean you made it?
I thought he looked weird and out of place, but I really didn't give it a second thought. My first day of high school actually went fine. It was on the way home where it all went wrong. I got on the school bus, and as I was walking to find my seat, I saw the same man from this morning sat on the back of the bus. This time he was staring right at me. I didn't know then, and I still don't know now, how this guy even got on the bus in the first place. The house I lived in was one of the last stops, so by the time my stop arrived, most of the kids have gotten off the bus, and the bus was empty. I could just feel that guy staring at me the whole bus ride home, though I didn't dare to look behind me and check. When my stop finally arrived, I got off and I started walking. And of course that creepy man got off and started following me. I started walking faster, and as I did, the man got faster, and that continued right down my street. The faster I walked, the faster he would. It got to the point where I needed to start running. Thankfully, my house was close by. I ran by my house and slammed the door shut, and I looked through the kitchen window to see if the man was still chasing me. He was walking past my house like nothing ever happened, while staring at me. Later that night, I was upstairs in my bedroom when someone knocked at the door, the downstairs door. The next thing I heard was my mom calling me downstairs. When I get there, my mom is looking confused and checking around outside. I say to her, "Yeah, Mom?" She said, "That's weird. There was a man just here asking to speak to you." I asked what he looked like, and she described the same man who chased me home earlier that day. I told my mom about what happened, and how I was pretty sure it was the same guy who knocked at the door. My mother told the police and our school. And actually, this wasn't the first time they have heard reports of this. The school and the police said they had several reports of the man stalking their children. From what I know, he was never caught. Who knows what he could be doing right now? Just be careful.
He's in the bus. Oh my, that wasn't. None of them are scary. but they're crazy. Alright, guys, I'm just gonna do a double one because I've not been recording lately. So I think I need to do a double one. Ooh, animation memes. No. I'm gonna do a short one.
Turn hungry into happy with Wawa Classic Hoagies, sourdough melts, and new stacked sandwiches, each for $5.49.
What kind of world do you want to live in?
I want people to wear what they want.
Bag lady. Seen this one, but
I've always had a innate fear of the night. Not so much the dark, but the night itself. As a child, my imagination was overcome with stories of creatures that come alive at night and the safety offered by a house and light. I never had anything to base this fear on, until a night when I decided to go with a buddy of mine to a baseball game and got stuck at a light at 2 a.m. after dropping him off at home. Of course, that night, the game went into extra innings, and so I didn't get a chance to drop my friend off back home until well after 1 a.m. Everything was fine on the way home until I hit a light right before the street that led to my house. It was a T-junction and I was turning left. The light is one of those that you think is broken until it finally turns green right when you finally decide to just run it. So, of course, I pulled up right as the light turned red. I would have just run the light, seeing as no one was there and it was closing in on 2 a.m. on a school night. But earlier that week I had heard the phrase, character is what you do when no one is looking, and for whatever reason, that was the night I decided to prove to myself that I was a man of character. Big mistake. I pulled to a stop at the light, feeling good about myself, bordering on self-righteous, when I happened to look out of my window to my left and noticed a lady sitting all alone on a bus bench. We made brief eye contact and I quickly looked away. It was too late. I could see movement out of my peripheral vision and knew she was coming my way. I looked out the window and noticed she was carrying a bag. I quickly checked that my doors were locked and that all my windows were up. I then moved my right foot above the accelerator just in case and braced myself for what was to come. I was hoping it would just be an awkward exchange and was praying for a quick light change before she reached me so I could just get out of there. But I knew there was a slim chance of that. She walked right up to my window, put down her bag, and began to tap on my window. I nervously looked up at her and she mentioned for me to put my window down. I had automatic windows, so I just imagined pushing too hard on the window button and that thing just coming all the way down. So I took a deep breath and lightly flicked it with my finger. The window moved microscopically down, but she didn't seem to notice or care. She then leaned in and began to talk. She said,
"My boyfriend beat me up. I have a friend who lives down the street. Can you give me a ride?"
Really? Really? My boyfriend beat me up, and I didn't call the police or anything. And it's too far to go down the street to my friend's house. Please give me a ride. Who in the world is that dumb? Your boyfriend beat you up? Where are the police? You didn't call the police? And if your friend's right down the street or whatever she said, then go walk. It's not that far for you to pick a ride, and this guy, I wish he was smarter.
I should stop and give you a brief physical description of the bag lady. She was small and skinny and kind of an indeterminate age. She was either in her mid-20s and had lived a hard 20-plus years on the street, or she was 60-something years old who had lived a moderately hard life on the street.
Yeah.
All that to say, just by looking at her, there was no way to verify her story. She looked beat up by life, not just by a boyfriend. But there was something about her delivery. It was robotic and seemed practiced, like she was disconnected for the moment. That made my skin crawl. And after a brief, maybe about a second debate on whether I should do it, I told her that I had to get home and that I couldn't give her a ride. After my first refusal, she leaned in closer and said the same thing again.
"My boyfriend beat me up. I have a friend who lives down the street. Can you give me a ride?"
This time, I felt more confident when I declined to give her a ride and told her I had a curfew and had to get home. She leaned in a third time and began her statement again.
My boyfriend beat me up.
At this point, the light changed and I slowly lifted my foot off the brake and started slowly rolling forward and began muttering an apology. She didn't move. She just looked at the light, looked down at me, leaned in closer, and said 5 words that have haunted me ever since.
You made the right decision.
Then she picked up her bag and walked back towards the bench. I peeled out of the intersection and cried and screamed all the way home. I have no idea what she planned to do, or if there were more people waiting to jump in my car from the bushes had I moved to let her in. But that encounter has haunted me ever since, and has confirmed in my mind that nothing good happens after dark.
Ooh, never. Never, never. I think that was it. Yeah. It's alright. Well, we're done for today's video. But guys, if you want to see any more, then, you know, just subscribe. Thanks guys. Goodbye.